for 62 mission. We're just past T plus 48 minutes and 12 seconds. We're currently awaiting the relight of our second stage MVAC engine. That's coming up in just about 90 seconds from now. Now this burn, called SES2 or second stage engine start 2, will last for just over 6 seconds. Now while we're waiting to come into coverage range of our African Indian Ocean ground stations, let's recap what we've had so far today. And it's been a successful mission so far. Falcon 9 successfully lifted off from Slick 4 East at 7:25 a.m., carrying the WSF microwave payload. Stage separation occurred just before 2.5 minutes into flight, right on time. Now it's followed by a successful landing of Falcon 9's first stage at landing zone 4, what we call a land-on-land landing. At about T plus 8 minutes, we had successful second stage engine cutoff, and that was SECA 1. We had the go to orbit call out just as we were going off of the air for the coast period, and now we're coming up in just about half a minute on second stage engine start number 2, and then we'll wait to hear the GNC engineer confirm the orbit. On the bottom right, take a look at the meters that we've got. You can see when we left, we were at perigee. We've now gone halfway around the Earth. We're at apogee. We're going to light the engine, and you'll see the velocity increase to circularize the orbit.
Ignition.
We've got ignition of the second stage engine. This is about a 6-second burn.
Nominal orbit.
All right, we've had the cutoff of the second stage engine, SECO 2, and the important part, the guidance nav and control officer has just confirmed that we have a good orbit. So this is the orbit that we need to be in for deploying the spacecraft. So we're now going to wait about a 5-minute period for deploy of the WSFM satellite from Falcon 9's second stage. And that's going to be just under 5 minutes from now, as I mentioned. We do this 5-minute wait because we want to make sure the second stage is quiet. We purge all the excess gases out of the engine. We monitor the engine. And then right before the spacecraft separates, we want to make sure we're not venting any liquid oxygen out of the tank. We want the second stage quiet and stable in what we call an idle state so that the spacecraft can separate without any disturbances. But we've got 5 minutes or so to wait, and so until then, let's toss it back to Atticus to learn more about today's mission.
Thank you, John. Space Systems Command is the U.S. Space Force's field command responsible for acquiring, developing, and delivering resilient capabilities and groundbreaking technologies to protect our nation's strategic advantage in and from space. Space-Based Environmental Monitoring's SBEM mission is to deliver environmental and tactical intelligence to provide an operational advantage. SBEM space programs work in cooperation with both civil and international partners, and today's payload, known formally as WSFM SV1, or the Weather System Follow-On Microwave Space Vehicle 1, provides modernized space-based microwave imaging capabilities for low Earth orbit weather data collection.
You just saw for a brief second that spacecraft that'll be deployed in the next couple of minutes here. Payload deployment expected at T plus 54 minutes, 57 seconds. As you heard and saw, oh, there's another glimpse of the spacecraft there. It'll be heading up into a sun-synchronous polar orbit. Part of the reason why it's launching from Vandenberg Space Force Base. It's reaching those polar orbits a little bit easier from that part of the country. As previously mentioned, this is the first of 2 satellites that Ball Aerospace, now a company owned by BAE Systems, will manufacture on behalf of now Space Systems Command. The second set to launch about 2028. We're just a little under 2 minutes away from spacecraft deployment. Coming up now, less than a minute from spacecraft deployment. Let's go ahead and listen back into John Insberger.
The payload attach fitting camera looking forward. You can see part of the WSFM satellite as we get ready to deploy it in about 16 seconds from now.
Payload deploy confirmed.
All right. Look at it go. Right on time, right into the orbit we needed to get it to. And so WSFM on its way to begin gathering that data, turn into a useful product for the warfighter. Nice views looking at second stage camera. So Atticus, it's been a great day so far. In fact, all we've got left is the sign-off. So why don't you take it away from there?
And as we heard and saw, a good deployment of the WSFM spacecraft payload heading off into its orbit. And with a successful deployment, we'll go ahead and hang with these pictures until spacecraft's just peeking out of frame there. Let's go ahead and close out as we always do with our mission stats. Let you know where things have landed now that we have a good liftoff, landing, and spacecraft deployment today. Alrighty, so this was the third flight of Falcon 9 booster 1082 in the SpaceX fleet, having previously launched 2 Starlink missions and now its first national security payload. This was SpaceX's 322nd Falcon 9 launch to date, the 37th Falcon 9 launch of 2024, the 37th orbital launch of the year so far. This was SpaceX's 110th orbital launch in the last 365 days. The 73rd orbital launch for SpaceX from Slick 4 East, and the 141st overall orbital launch from this pad, the 13th from Vandenberg in 2024. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 17th landing over at LZ4, landing zone 4. Also, of course, the 17th landing in California. This was SpaceX's 67th land landing between California and Florida, and the 296th Falcon booster landing to date. Finally, coming out for some industry stats, this was the 13th orbital launch from California, of course, the 40th from U.S. soil, This is the 43rd from a U.S. rocket company, getting close to that next Rocket Lab mission heading up from New Zealand, which will add to that number. This was the 71st orbital launch from around the world. Moving out to the pie chart version of that, you can see here, you've got Russia now bumping up to 6 with the launch of the Ankara A5 rocket that happened early this morning as well. And that'll just about do it for us here today. Really appreciate you taking some time to catch this live launch coverage this afternoon with us. Want to thank our wonderful channel member community and, of course, all the moderators helping us out in the live chat as well. Happen to keep things kosher